Hello, everyone. We should be live now. Welcome to this webinar. Really excited about this one. It's going to be great. This is the first time we're using this platform, Livestorm. I forgot the name briefly. Livestorm is what we're using. So welcome. It's going to be really interesting topic. To first, before we get into it, and while we wait for everyone to join, give me a message in the chat to know that you can all hear me. There we are. Everyone is tuning in. So hopefully you can see me as well. Great. It's always a good start when you're using a brand new platform, is that there is no issues immediately. But today's discussion, we're going to be diving into solving the secrets management puzzle. So secrets management is something that we're frankly not doing great at. And we've assembled a panel to kind of go through some research that GitGuardian's recently just published and provide different perspectives. So I'm going to be moderating the conversation, and I'll do a little bit of a presentation just to start with. It will be a short 10-minute presentation from me, and then we'll get into the meat of what we're really discussing. But just to introduce everyone that's going to be appearing a little bit later on, we have Carey from 1Password. So 1Password also offers secrets management for developers. We have James Governor from RedMonk, which is providing an analyst view, someone that has a very good holistic understanding of what's happening in the world of developers and really understanding the issues and problems that they're facing. And then we have Andrei Predoiu from Bestseller, who's a practitioner, someone that's working in DevOps engineering, someone that's actually dealing with this on the ground in a company. So they're all going to bring their unique perspectives. So really looking forward to it. So before we get into it, let me know where in the world that you are tuning in from. I love to see that we have a global audience. So in the chat, let me know where you're tuning in from. I'll start. I'm coming in from you from Oslo in Norway. I'm here for a conference briefly. So let me know whereabouts in the world you guys are tuning in from. Canada, Manchester, Boston, Washington, India, Nairobi, Ghana, Nepal. Oh, my basement. It's a good spot. Colombia, Germany, Italy. Wow, Philippines. Wow, we have some really cool ones. Really great to see. Palestine. Wow, I think this is the first time we've had someone from Palestine. So welcome. Portugal / Netherlands, 2 places at once. Paris, Turkey, India, Italy. Wow, we are truly a global audience today. It's really cool to see. I love the reach that we have. We strategically picked this time because it covers the most amount of time zones. So I apologize if it's very early in the morning or very late in the evening for you, but this is research has gone into why we picked this exact time, wherever you are in the world. But just to let you know, in the crowd, obviously you've all found the chat button. There's also a button next to it that says questions. So you can actually ask questions throughout the webinar. And by doing that, by participating, by asking questions, by participating in the chat, gets you in the draw to win some prizes from us. We'll announce them next week on Monday. We'll announce who the winners are of that. But basically, ask lots of questions, participate in the chats, and that's going to be the best way that we can share your enthusiasm and reward you with some gift cards or some packages of some sort. So please make sure you participate. All right, with all the pleasantries out the way, let's get stuck into it. And I'm going to present kind of the surrounding topic that we have. So earlier on in the year, you may be familiar, we released a report. It's called the State of Secrets Sprawl. And the high level, I'm not going to talk about this too much, but we found 10 million secrets that were leaked on public places in GitHub. So proving that there is really a truly massive issue in this space. So it leads you to the question of why are these secrets? And when I'm talking about secrets, just in case you're not familiar, I'm talking about API keys, credentials, security certificates, really the crown jewels of our organizations. And these are made to be used programmatically, so machine to machine. But the problem is that humans touch them. And when humans touch something, there's a chance for them to kind of leak out. So why? Why are we historically, and the evidence would suggest, quite bad at managing these secrets? So we went on a bit of a road trip around, asking everyone that we could really what are their key issues? Why is this a struggle? How are they doing and dealing with it in their organization? And we're happy to say that we managed to get 500 plus CISOs and engineering leaders to answer this survey that we did. So massive segment that we have. And we've put it all together in a report called The Voice of Practitioners, the State of Secrets in AppSec. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. We're going to be discussing some of the findings from those surveys we got. And then bring a panel, and basically we're going to dive into it and essentially challenge it. So it's going to be quite interesting. So just to give you a very high level of some of what we found in the report. Now, I'm sure they'll in the chat, if you ask, there'll be someone that can post a link to the report in there. But I'm just going to go through just a high level of really what we found in here. So 3 out of 4 respondents declared that their organizations have experienced a secret leak. So a secret leak can be quite significant. This basically means that someone's been able to authenticate or could have been able to authenticate themselves into their systems or services. So that secret has leaked out of its control. So 3 out of 4 is a lot. That's much more than half, obviously. So 75%. It's showing that there is a real issue here, and it's not an issue that's just hypothetical. It's an issue that's actually affecting people. So you can kind of look at the breakdown of what we've had, but only 25% actually answered no, that they've never had a secret leak of some form with that. So this is really quite concerning, and it does continue to show the trend that what we've already kind of know from our other reports and other research is that these secrets are fairly hard to manage. And something that shocked me is that over a quarter of the teams still rely on manual code reviews to detect secrets. Now, manual code reviews are a terrible way to actually find these secrets. So if you look at an engineering scenario with software engineering of how these secrets would leak, a common scenario might be that you have an engineer that's working on a feature. They're working on a separate branch in Git, perhaps. So they hard code the credentials just to get it working. Then they remove those credentials later on because they're going to use environment variables or however they're supposed to manage their secrets. 100 commits later, it goes to code review. So that code review is typically going to look at the latest version. That latest version is probably going to be free from secrets. But is that code reviewer going to go past the last 100 commits to make sure that nothing sensitive is leaked? Probably not, right? It would be very surprising if someone actually did that. So manual code reviews is a terrible way of actually identifying where these secrets are leaking through. Not to mention the fact that they often leak through like debug logs or environment variables, places that you probably wouldn't think to look. So if you're debugging something, that debug log might create a printout of your environment that will have environment variables in it, which could be secrets. So these types of things that maybe you're not thinking about that you wouldn't review manually. So the fact that about 27% admitted that they're relying on manual reviews is showing a pretty scary state of where we're actually at. We're not even implementing basic tooling to be able to detect these secrets. So slightly over half the engineering teams use a dedicated secrets manager system. So this one really confused me. What are you using if you're not using a secrets manager? Obviously, there's some answers in there. But having a dedicated secrets manager is incredibly important. It's the first step, because how are we meant to handle things correctly if we don't have a tool to be able to manage them in the first place? It's no point being upset if a secret leaks when we don't have a place that we can actually securely put it, that's well defined, that has policies around it. So people are sharing them on messages in clear text, we can see here. People are sharing them in code repositories. So just because something's private doesn't mean it has adequate security to be able to store sensitive information like this. So what you'll notice that a lot of adversaries are doing, and the Lapsus group is one that's recently done this, is they will purchase session cookies often for places like company Slack channels off the dark web. So this is quite common to purchase these cookies. Cookies will bypass MFA as well, so it's better than a credential. But once they're in the Slack channel, well, then they're probably going to be able to uncover lots of different secrets that have been shared in there. If the secrets manager is not being used, this absolutely is probably how secrets are being shared. And it's really a problematic way of doing it, to say the least. So This one here is interesting, and it's going to lead into the next slide too. Is have you considered implementing any of the following in the coming 12 months? So have you considered implementing new tools for secrets managers? Have you considered implementing new measures to prevent secrets? And only half the people, are kind of saying, yes, we're ready to implement some new tools, some new systems in here, which is it's just scary because we've already seen that we have a problem here and that there's a lack of tooling in place, but there doesn't seem to be the appetite to be able to replace that. And that's really what we've found overall, is that 47% of the respondents that we have identified that hard-coded secrets are a key risk point in the supply chain. So probably not that surprising. This is absolutely very true. But only 26% said they would actually invest in secret detection and remediation. 23%. So it's showing this disconnect that we're facing right now, is that we know it's a high risk. Yes, 75% of people have even had experiences with leakages, but we're not willing to invest in this. Now, this could be budgetary constraints. This could be a fact that you just don't have people that can manage these projects. But that's quite scary and quite concerning to kind of see that this disconnect. And it proves that we're kind of probably not going to improve on these numbers that we keep putting out as well. So when we actually looked and asked people, what application tools will you invest in? And there's a couple that come right at the top that you probably would imagine. API security is very hot right now. So number one said they're looking at investing in some API security testing. Web application firewalls, WAFs is another big one. Dynamic application security testing, DAST. And the list goes on. And then way down the bottom, you have secrets detection and remediation and secrets management. So I understand that managing secrets may not be as sexy as having some cool dynamic security testing devices and other tools that appeal, but we're still not getting the fundamentals right, and we really need to invest some time into this. So interesting results that have come out of this here. So one other interesting thing that we had is we asked, are they confident about their organization's ability to be able to prevent secrets from leaking? And about half said that they were confident that they would be able to prevent it. So that's probably the half that's investing in the tools. That's probably the half that is kind of doing the research, has those tools in place, that understands what's happening. But as we can see by these results, is that we're really still a long way off from actually having the appetite to try and correct some of these problems. And what's really interesting is that leaked secrets is a persistent problem. It's continuing to be a problem. Secrets are used in many different breaches, perhaps maybe not as initial access, but definitely by attackers. Once they make it onto your networks, they will immediately start enumerating through your network, scanning information, try and find secrets to elevate their privileges. Because if they're reliant on a session cookie for their access, then that can be shut off quickly. So you want to make sure that you have multiple areas of access. How do you do this? Secrets. But only half the organizations, which we know are also not investing money into this, are actually confident that they'll be able to prevent that if an attacker makes their way in or if a secret leaks. So it's really challenging insights that we get here. So that's kind of the high level of the report. So what I want to do now is invite back onto the stage the guests that we have here. So the part that I'm most excited about. So I'll do an introduction. And if you guys can all turn your cameras on so we can see you. Hopefully everyone will be able to see you there. I'll do a quick introduction for everyone and also invite them to maybe tell them a little bit. Have Mike Carey. Carey is from, I just had an internet, so I think we're good. So Mike Carey is from 1Password. So 1Password you may know as a password manager.
Uh-oh. Mike, do you just want to keep going and introduce yourself?
I apologize for having some internet troubles. I'm just going.
Yeah, I can continue. So I'm Mike. I'm a senior product manager at 1Password. As Mackenzie was saying, 1Password offers a password management solution, but we also have developer tools that sort of address a wide variety of use cases. And I work specifically on the infrastructure secrets team in our developer tools.
Okay, I'll jump in. I'm James Governor, co-founder of a company called RedMonk. We're a research company. We spend our time trying to understand the choices that developers, engineers, and practitioners are making. We live in a world today when technology decision-making is ever more from the bottom up, and that's what we focus on at RedMonk. So yeah, just trying to understand developers and the choices that they make. Andrei, over to you.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Andrei Predoiu. I'm a DevOps engineer at Bestseller AS in Denmark. We're a fashion design and retail company. And the IT part is responsible for the IT backbone of 20 or so different fashion brands. So that's about me.
I apologize. I cut out for a brief minute there, but we've got the internet. We're on a more stable internet, so I apologize. But thank you for taking over. So thank you all for joining. Mike, have you introduced yourself, or shall I do a?
Yeah,
okay, fantastic.
We're all good. We're
all caught up. I shouldn't have said anything. I like that was the perfect time for my internet to drop because you guys were able to take over. So at least hey, this is happening live. This is what happens when we're live. But yeah, so the reason why we assembled this group is because it covers a broad range of people that have different perspectives. So I'm imagining that there's going to be some challenging ideas here that come up. But we have people that are building the tools to be able to solve this problem, Mike and also myself from GitGuardian. And we have James, who understands what's happening in the industry from an analyst point of view, with the ear to the ground, that understands the troubles. And then we have Andrei, who's got their fingers in the mud, is actually dealing with this. They can tell us that these conceptual problems that we talk about are how they affect in the real world. So what I want to do is I just want to start off with a question for all of you. So one of the key points that I meant out there is that 3 out of 4 respondents reported they experienced a leak. So the first question that I want to have is, does this surprise you? And I think we'll start off with James. James, did this number surprise you that 3 out of 4 people had experienced some kind of leak of their credentials?
No, not at all. I think as an industry, we generally have not really done a very good job of security. I think part of the problem is having these it has been a separate domain. If we think about other parts of the software development lifecycle and operations, we've tended to try and bring the responsibilities together and collapse some of those processes, move away from things like waterfall. Security has been a bit of a holdout. We've got this sort of separate team that is in charge of security. And I think too often, I mean, one of the things I always notice is you're sort of flying in to San Francisco and you arrive and there's always, still in 2023, there's always someone selling, like a firewall appliance. It's always like Silver Barracuda or Silver Shark or Silver something. And it's this idea that you will buy this thing and then you will be secure. And I think as an industry, we keep on making the same mistakes and we don't take it seriously. You see these wonderful presentations where they say, reputational risk, once you've had a breach, means that you'll be out of business within 9 months. That's BS. I can point to most of the companies in the Fortune 500, and they probably had a breach at some point. So I think just as a whole, we've got a lot of work to do, and it isn't surprising because we see these leaks every day. We see identities being leaked, and it is something that we need to do a better job of, frankly. Surprising? Absolutely not.
And Mike, what do you bring to this? If someone that's kind of building these tools, were you surprised that this is so prevalent still?
No, it's concerning, but not surprising, I think. James mentioned that there is no silver bullet to this problem. But I think the problem is that there's still an awareness gap when it comes to sort of the importance of managing secrets and then understanding what solutions are available to actually help you do that on a day-to-day basis. If I'm being optimistic, I'd probably assume that a lot of these respondents that said they weren't using dedicated secrets managers are still leveraging some of the secure secrets management within their infrastructure, like maybe AWS Secrets Manager or GCP Secrets Manager, but it probably doesn't go much further than that. And I think the reason that those tools get used is because of how tightly integrated they are with the infrastructure. So I think the key to really sort of promoting this and educating users and getting wider adoption is meeting the developers where they are, and helping them manage secrets throughout their entire software development lifecycle. Whether it's in the IDE, for example, we have like a VS Code extension that can replace secrets, or in your CI/CD pipelines.
Perfect.
Meeting them where they are, so you can get that kind of adoption that you see with some of these other solutions.
Yeah, I love that. Sorry to just jump in again, and I won't speak for a moment after, but yeah, I think that's so right. Meeting the developers where they are, and generally, I say jokingly, developers only want to be in like 3 places. They want to be in GitHub, they want to be in the editor, and they want to be in Slack for sharing GIFs and stuff. So, integrating your solutions with them, integrating your secrets into their workflows, I think is really critical. I think we are going to talk a bit more about developer experience in a minute, so I will stand down. But I thought what Mike said was right on.
Yeah. Well, I want to bring Andrei into this one. And Andrei, I said in the presentation, there's a lot of people that are relying on manual code reviews. So from your perspective, someone that's in the that's in the trenches, let's say, is this effective? Is this something that you've seen too, that where secrets are kind of only detected in manual places, and like would this be effective?
Yeah. So I think there's 2 things here. First, it depends on the let's say maturity level, a CMMI, you would call it, level of the company, the strength of the processes, and the strength of the development teams. And even then, you're talking about humans. We all make mistakes, and it's easy to lose something and not see it. As you said, in the Git history, or why do you have some old or untouched code? A few months ago, we found some legacy code in some SVN repo, and we said, okay, we have to bring this into our GitHub. And then, let's say we found a lot of surprises in there, but there was no pull request. There was no, this process, wasn't available there. So what do? You need more than that. It's not enough.
Yeah, got it. Now, James, I know you said you're going to stop talking for a minute, but I'm going to bring you back for one more thing, because I know that you understand the industry and as a whole. And one of the things that the report really identified for me was a disconnect between what people are seeing as a risk and what they're willing to basically implement or purchase, or not even purchase, because there's a lot of free stuff available, open source stuff, but just implement, invest in introducing these tools. So 47% they said they identified hard-coded secrets as a risk. 26% said they would invest in secrets detection and remediation. Why do you think there's such a disconnect at the moment with the risks that we clearly see and the willingness to be able to implement solutions for it?
I think it's just human nature. We're really bad at risk management, and we're really bad in investing in avoiding risk. We see this in all forms of maintenance, technology or otherwise. People will, drive their car when they know it has a fault, and then they're not surprised when they have to pull over to the side of the highway. They get angry, but they never got it serviced. Or me riding my bicycle, I'm like, why is it knocking? This is strange. And then you wait and you go, no, this is really bad. And then you go and and it's like, oh no, you're going to need a new wheel because you didn't do that before. I think it's human nature. I mean, climate change, pretty sure it's a problem, but invest to fix the problem? Oh no. You know, so we live in a world of identifying risk and then honestly not doing anything about it until people will smoke until they have a heart attack and then they'll give up. And unfortunately, we sort of it seems like human nature is we have to go through these really traumatic events or need really very industry regulation. That's one reason that you'll invest in this stuff. We should have in all industries mandates for automated secrets management. That's obvious. So it tends to be either a near-death experience or it's going to have to be mandated from outside. And yeah, it's disappointing. But again, I do think it's human nature. That's not it's not a technology problem. It's just the way humans are.
It's what I think they call the broken window effect. Where a window gets broken the first day it annoys you. You're very aware of it, but if you leave it for a month, you will eventually just stop caring or stop noticing that it's broken. I want to pass it on to you, Andrei, as well. From their presentation, now I know that you guys you've implemented lots of tools. You've implemented tools on managing secrets. You've implemented tools on detecting secrets. You've implemented policies around it. But why? But that's kind of a standout at the moment of what we're seeing. So what are the challenges that you see in actually being able to implement some of these changes? What prevents organizations? What prevents people in your position to implement these changes?
So there's a lot to unpack there, and I'm going to try to keep it short. So firstly, you need the right motivation, and usually, as both of you have been saying, that comes after somebody gets it, right? Some secret gets leaked, some malicious infrastructure gets deployed, some money is lost, some reputation is lost, unfortunately. But when it gets down to actually making a change, first you need a good solution. So you need to define the tools that you want to use and the way of using them, and have it available for your developers. Then we kind of have a few steps. First, we teach, we empower, we encourage, and then we enforce. That's kind of the change pattern that we follow in our team. So we teach them how to do it right. We empower them with the tools and the knowledge. We encourage them, and once we have some critical mass, we will turn the switch and say, now you can only do it the right way. Via in this specific case, we're using GitGuardian pull request checks and pre-commit hooks, and we're using scanners, and we stop them from pushing directly to master, no matter what, et cetera, right? So,
yeah, it's very interesting. But as I say, this is really on the bleeding edge of things of having these policies and much deeper. It's not something we're seeing. And James touched on something that we're going to come back to in terms of kind of talking about governance and stuff. So I want to bring up something that's kind of controversial. I'm putting this slide in here because I disagree with it, but I like the person that said it. So during a quote, one of the things that they said is, while Secrets Sprawl is a problem most companies experience, it's not hard to solve. So I disagree. I think it's very hard to solve completely, but I wanted to kind of get your perspectives on this. So Mike, I'll start with you. Is Secrets Brawl, as someone that creates a secrets manager that helps to combat this, do you feel that Secrets Brawl is something that can be easily solved, or at least solved?
Honestly, that it sort of sounds like famous last words. I'd be very worried to speak something like that, because you're asking for trouble. But it's I think the reality is Secrets Sprawl is an ever evolving challenge. Your organization, nothing is static, everything's growing. Organizations grow, and even recently with the increase in remote workforces, that's introduced a whole new set of problems. You no longer have the physical security of an office. You don't have the security of an office network. Everyone's on their personal networks. Each might have vulnerabilities. Then digital communications now. I mean, you mentioned people sharing secrets in Slack. I'm sure that has increased over, with remote workforces. You have screen sharing. You could slip up and expose a secret through a screen sharing session, accidentally commit a secret. There's all kinds of challenges, and they will continue to grow. So I don't think it's never a problem that can be 100% solved. It's more of a strategy that needs to be implemented and continuously monitored. And I think it really sort of starts at the organizational level, and on every CISO should have secrets management and secrets sprawl front of mind, regardless of the size of their organization, because we all know, a single secret leaked can just send shockwaves through an organization. So it is super important, and it pains me to read this quote.
Yeah, well, I mean, I really like Brian, and one of the things that I say, I guess, is a little bit controversial too, kind of along the same lines, is that Secrets Brawl could be a solved problem in the terms that we have all the technology to solve it, right? Like we have the ability to have secrets managers. We can share secrets securely. We can store secrets securely. We technically can do it. It should be a solved problem, but it's not. So that's one area. James, do you have any? Go for it.
To say to that, I mean, with every problem in the world, the human factor is the wild card. We can solve it with technology, but the humans are the ones who will make the mistakes. The humans are the ones who are going to accidentally leak a secret. So that's what I mean by it's an ongoing challenge that you always have to be addressing, because even if you have everything in place to technically remove the challenge of secret sprawl, there's still humans involved, and they're the ones who are interfacing with these secrets. So
absolutely. I mean, even these secrets, they're made to be used programmatically from machine to machine, but humans still need to get their grubby hands on them and touch them and put them places they shouldn't.
If I may intervene. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go for it. No, Andrei, please.
I would say that it is somehow straightforward to do on a technical level, but the people factor is also very, very important. And I think the technical side is just work you have to do. You read up, you study up, you see what the technology is, and you implement it, you follow the guidelines. But changing people's behavior can be a lot more difficult at the end of the day, in my opinion. And I have a funny story there. We automated the DNS provisioning in our Kubernetes clusters. It's quite straightforward to do. And then we said, okay, you do it like this, and you don't have to get access to our DNS or do any of that. And then somebody got the service account credentials from the cluster, and we found it in a Git repo. So,
Look, it happens. We have the website that we have. Can someone post it in the chat, because I feel like I'm going to get it wrong, but it's shittysecretmanagement.dev or shittysecretstory.dev. If someone can post that in the chat from GitGuardian, there's a website that we have where people can share their funny stories about how credentials have leaked. And there's some doozies on there, I gotta say. Just before we move on, James, do you have a kind of an opinion of this as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Kubernetes example was absolutely on point. We see this again and again. With the best will in the world and the best automation in the world, we're dealing again with humans, and humans make shortcuts, and humans make mistakes. And yeah, I think that we're going to be in a world of mitigate. You're always in a world of mitigating risk. You cannot eliminate risk. As a parent, my job, I think very often is risk management, and you don't want to go too far. There have to be some freedoms there, but clearly you need guardrails and stuff. Occasionally, stuff will go wrong. So Secrets Brawl is again. I don't think we ever get 100% in anything when it comes to technology.
Yeah, definitely. And just in case anyone, I just want to say that that this wasn't here to shame anyone at Doppler or Brian. I just put this in there because it's controversial and an interesting talking point. And I'm sure if he was here, he'd be able to defend himself, but he's not. So we'll move on. But why is it harder? Why, in my opinion? So this is the great thing about being a moderator, is that when it's my time to speak, I can actually have slides that go with what I want to say. So it's totally unfair, but I'm going to take the advantage. But it's the reasons why I feel like it's very hard to solve this problem is because it's really hard to catch them all without having any false positives. Everyone that works in security is affected by something called alarm fatigue. So, how do we capture all the secrets without kind of being alerted by too much alarms? That's difficult. Secrets are everywhere. So they're in the Slacks. We've talked about it. They're sprawling around. Debt keeps growing. So when you don't have a proper implement in place, when you don't have secrets managers in place to be able to solve this or detection, then the problem gets harder and harder to the point where when we roll out GitGuardian, we'll find thousands of secrets. And it's almost so overwhelming that you don't even want to look at the problem anymore, because how can a team of 2 people deal with 3,000 incidents, and move forward? So there's another issue of kind of why it kind of gets put off, because once you know the secrets are there, you have to do something about it. If you don't know they're there, you don't. And then redeploying them, revoking them, going through the process. It's not a matter of just finding the secrets. You have to go through the steps of actually changing it. So that's kind of what I kind of look underneath the surface. But I do agree that the point that technologically it's solved, on paper it's solved, but we still can't get there. So what does taming Secrets Brawl look like? So it can be quite challenging. So on this the top level, we have 2 columns here: unmanaged secrets bad, managed secrets good. So we want to hard code the secrets in clear text. We're not rotating secrets. We're using long-lived credentials that live on forever. And we compare this to the opposite, using vaults, automatically rotating them. But it keeps going on. Permission scopes, we've got the principle of least privileges, making sure that we're not just creating admin credentials, auditing, etc., etc., etc. So it's actually quite daunting to do it. So how do we go from one side to the other? So Andrei, I want to start with you, because you've done this. Perhaps you weren't ever on the left side, but you've certainly gotten further and further of right. What do you start? How do you start dealing with this? What do you do you prioritize stuff? Do you tackle it all at once? How do you actually go about solving this issue? If someone's listening, go, okay, I have an issue, but what do I do? How do I start?
So we didn't have a fresh start, but we did have a start. When my team got formed, we were set to design and carry the company into the cloud. And then we got a chance to look at what our company was already doing, what Bestseller was doing for secrets. And we decided that's not going to cut it. That's going to be useless for us. It's not automatable. It's not what we need. So we had the courage and we pushed a lot, actually. And we ended up succeeding, and we deployed our own secret server. We were using Vault from HashiCorp. And then we had a long process of building a structure for the teams and environments, and then defining how that should work and teaching everybody how to use it and what we expect from them. And then also leverage this technology to do automated credentials, dynamic secrets, integrating with workload with identity, secretless workloads and all that kind of stuff. And it's still a very much ongoing process, because the things we did in the beginning, now they have really good alternatives. They are even better, and we learn as we go as well. So after that, after we were happy and we were kind of in a good place, we looked at how do we clean up what we already have, especially the ton of legacy code that we brought in from the old ERP systems, the old side projects, the old consultancy. solutions that we purchased, and we saw a lot of problems in there. And we looked at GitGuardian, and I can go into why, but we thought it was the best one, and we used that to see what problems we had. Afterwards, remediate them one by one, and then block, right? Use the technology to make sure secrets don't end up in our repositories, and that people use the right solution that we made for them.
Yeah,
so that's kind of the story.
One thing that you said there, which is interesting, is you said courage, and I feel like that's very true. It does take courage to be able to go on to this because it's a big journey, and one that certainly comes with a lot of challenges. I want to put this over to you, Mike, because as someone that creates some of the tools for this, where would you recommend people to start in starting to deal with this project? Is it perhaps once they've rolled out 1Password or they've rolled out a secrets manager, what's kind of the next steps? What's the first steps, and what can people do? What would you recommend for people that you're interacting with?
Yeah, I mean, from a password manager perspective, I think what we're trying to do is just educate users on the use cases beyond sort of what they intuitively think a password manager is for, which is just, username and passwords and maybe TOTP tokens. So I think it's really our role to try to educate users on all of the other secrets they're touching day to day that they might not even be thinking about, and trying to encourage them to use those, and then make the process as seamless as possible, that, again, we can start moving up the SDLC to start, going from the individual developer and their workstation to pipelines to actual infrastructure. One way we did this recently was with a SSH key agent. So most developers don't really think about SSH keys. They have this private key sitting on their machine that they create, maybe once every time they get a new laptop, and just leave it there. And nobody thinks twice about it. But once we built an SSH agent into 1Password, so you could sign Git commits with your fingerprint, it created such a frictionless solution that people started adopting it really quickly. And now they don't want to go back to having to create SSH keys on the command line or manage them. So I think by introducing features, and identifying things that like we have ways of prompting a user, like, hey, this looks like a sensitive credential. You should store this in 1Password. By doing that and sort of getting into their workflows, you sort of chip away at it and move it up. And I think the other aspect of that is not just starting at the developer, but starting at the organization and educating the organization about the tools that are available, and what they can do to help increase their security posture.
Definitely, it's very, very sound advice. James, do you have anything to kind of add to what you're seeing in the industry of what would you recommend people, if someone coming to you and asking you, how do we solve this problem? Where do we start?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things is, obviously, you want a good conversation between developers and platform teams, developers and security teams, and it's always easier said than done. But a frank conversation about improvement, and this may be a trigger on, people are. Lots of organizations are currently modernizing their pipelines and thinking about what that should look like. So that's a good time to have a discussion about, hang on a second, okay, we are going to, upgrade from our 20-year-old Jenkins systems, and sort of thinking about what that will look like. So while we're going through that process, bring the developers in and ask them what they would like to use. Developers know about 1Password. It's a good example. So be like, hey, the kind of experiences you had there could be valuable here. Are there any tools that you would like to see there? Let's have a frank discussion about this Kubernetes rollout, because frankly, the default privileges are totally absurdly open. We're going to need secrets if we're going to have these microservices. So let's have that conversation together. And I mean, I don't know, that sounds a bit sort of a little bit apple pie, but I do think a frank conversation between the different constituencies is going to be helpful. It's not that developers don't care. It just hasn't necessarily been something that they have been thinking about. So involve both or all three of those, platform, security, and developers, in a conversation about moving forward and making secret sprawl and secrets management a problem that the organization is going to fix together. Because I think that's how we've solved, or that's how we've got better at some of these things. Testing itself, the shift testing left. These are things where you provide better tools, but also you listen to developers and you bring them closer to the platform teams.
You made me feel quite old there because you were like, oh, my 20-year-old Jenkins things. I remember seeing, it feels like yesterday, someone showed me Jenkins for the first time, and it was the most wild thing I've ever seen in my life. Like back then. So you can do what automatically?
Oh, mate,
obviously now it's very old. But
I'm old enough that I remember talking to Kazuki when he just built it and was running on a laptop under his desk at Sun Microsystems. It was called Hudson. So, we can, if we want to show how old we are, I mean, there's a lot of white in my beard.
Now, we're running out of time, and I know I'm not going to be able to get through everything, but I think that's okay because the conversation is great. And there's a question that's come into the chat that I think is really interesting, and we can talk about this. It's from Anonymous User 35, first name or last name, I'm not sure. But the secrets, and basically the question is, are secrets only the responsibility of the security team? How can engineers actually help? So I just thought maybe we quickly spend some time on this at an appropriate time. Andrei, how can developers help the engineering team? You're part of the ops team. What would you, or the DevOps team, what would you kind of really like to see some of the developers or take on to help this? I think, you're on mute there, Andrei, if you're talking.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah,
there we go. I was saying that is, I think, extremely hard, and it's getting harder and harder because the cognitive load on developers is growing extremely, and has been for the last few years, especially since getting into the cloud. All these tools, all these solutions, all these pipelines, how they all chain together, what are they supposed to be used for? It's very difficult. So I don't blame developers so much, but there needs to be, at the end of the day, a simple, common sense stuff that we have seen is, if you committed your password, if it's in Git, then you should consider it leaked. It's not enough that you amended your commit or changed the history. Report that to security, or ask if you don't know, right? Just say, hey, DevOps team, how do I do? I have this scenario, this crazy scenario. I don't know how to do it. Can you guys help me out? Right? That's what we're here for, to help the developers. Yeah.
Very cool. I'd love to hear other people's opinion, but I think we're going to have to move on because we've got a lot to cover. But there's some interesting areas of why this is such a challenge too, looking at it. And what Andrei was just saying about working with developers is the developer experience of secrets managers is quite challenging at the moment, as he said, especially the fact that they've got so much on their mind. If it's not seamless, if what you're trying to get them to do isn't seamless in their developer experience, then it's so difficult. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that seamless too, because the 1Password Secrets Manager has some great tools that Mike talked about in VS Code that makes that seamless. Security training for devs. This one's interesting. Should we be doing more security training for devs, or do they have enough on their plates? I'm curious to know. James, what do you think of this one here?
Yeah, I think as Andrei says, they've got a lot on their plates. We keep on creating new responsibilities and saying, oh, well, this is the responsibility of the developer. But definitely just training in general. We do expect developers to be sort of lifelong learners, or whatever the phrase you want to use is, but then we don't give them the time and or the budget to do that. If you are an organization that expects to involve your developers in a conversation about improving your security posture, but then you are not offering them training, if you are not offering them a budget for online education, if you're not allowing them to go to that conference they want to go to about the area, if you are not funding them to run a meetup about the thing in your company, then you're not going to get good outcomes. So I think too often organizations haven't been great about this. I think they've got a lot better, and it's good to see sort of enterprises beginning to understand this. But yeah, I mean, I think one of the questions is, it's about alignment of incentives. We'll say a bit more about how do you get developers to do this. But yeah, absolutely, more security training, fine. But in what format do they want to do it? Do they have a budget? Do they have the time to do it? Because if they don't, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And if I may add, what is the purpose of this training? Because a lot of companies, probably all the big corps, have this mandatory cybersecurity training stuff, but that's not made for developers. That's made for the lawyers. So all the developers are just gonna be like this, playing next or whatever, skipping through it. That's not gonna do anything.
Yeah. And they're getting clever at making you do it too. Like our security training is, you can't, you can't. Yeah, it has to be like high volume. It has to be on your screen. You can't do anything else while you're watching it. They really make you suffer through that one. But yeah, it's really interesting. I want to get onto something we've got down here, imposed regulations, but I want to talk about regulations kind of in total. So we've got NIST guidelines are coming out. We've also got the CISA checklist. Now, these are starting to introduce secrets into their guidelines. What is your opinion on having more regulation, more policies, and more guidelines that perhaps is even kind of has some legal consequences about adding secrets? Is that good? Is it bad? Will it help or will it not help? So, Mike, I'll maybe start with you. What's your opinion on guidelines, policy standards that involve secrets?
Yeah, I definitely think it's a good place to start. Like, by having compliance in place, it at least sort of forces the top of the organization to start thinking about this. And what it can do is it can lead to policies and processes to handle secrets that may not even be covered by the compliance regulations, but you get that secondary effect of having those policies in place. I think on the flip side of that, though, one problem I see with compliance is often companies will sacrifice security to meet compliance. If the choice is between being compliant or implementing the most secure solution, they're going to choose compliance, since that has legal, repercussions if you don't follow it. So again, I think that's where the service providers come in to offer solutions that allow companies to achieve compliance while still having a great user experience and being able to actually take action on these things when they need to, while maintaining their compliance.
Definitely. James, from a holistic point of view, you've got your head to the ground. You don't have an opinion from one organization. Compliance, standards, yes or no? What are your thoughts?
It makes people do stuff. I mean, I think that as I've said, people really do need external stimuli in order to change their behaviors. And look, I'm not saying that all regulation is good, but I'm definitely not of the belief that all regulation is bad. And encouraging better behaviors, and certainly, look, the regulated industries are not going to become unregulated all of a sudden. We're not going to see, we're not going to see banks in Europe suddenly do away with regulations. So we might as well have some useful parts of the regulations, useful controls in these areas that will make breaches and security problems less likely. So I do think that's one of the levers or levers, if I'm speaking in a British accent, that is very applicable in this area. So it's going to be part of the mix. It does sometimes it's theater. There's no doubt. But and there are interesting ones there. In the insurance industry, why do people have fire alarms in their buildings? It's because it gives them a lower cost of insurance. That's another sort of, it's these financial levers, regulatory levers. It's just part of how mature industries and organizations get things done. And yeah, I do think it should be part of the mix.
Okay. And Andrei, just quickly, as someone, if regulations came in, I mean, this is going to affect you, what's your opinion on it? Is it kind of like, let us just do our job and do it well, and if people don't do that, so be it? Or would you be in support of having, more restrictions or compliance?
It really depends. So right now I work in a fashion company, so you can get an idea, like a gut feeling of the level of regulations. But I also used to work in a CMMI level 5 company, which is, has the ability to do U.S. government and military contracts and healthcare and stuff like that. And I got to see both sides of this coin. And I can tell you that the legal and security parentheses audit department can take care of any regulation possible without really changing anything discernible for the everyday developer. So you can write your procedures and your the way you do things in your company in such a way that nothing gets done practically, and you keep running as usual. So to that, I would say it really depends on the organizations and the management to understand what actually needs to be done and push the right changes through, or not, I guess, depending on what makes sense. And for the developers, usually is always a matter of sweetening the carrot enough and lengthening the stick enough. From my experience, that's what works the best.
Definitely. Well, let's talk about developers now then. We're running out of time, so we're going to have to be quick. But, one of the things that I like that, 1Password is doing is be able to make it easy and integrate into the tools with it. Is one of the problems why we've ended up in this situation is that we haven't focused enough on developer experience. Now, Mike, you're going to be biased. I'll come to you last. But James, what's your opinion on this? Do tools and vendors like GitGuardian, like us, do we need to focus more on developer experience? Will that help in getting developers to use these tools?
Always. I mean, developers are lazy. If you can make the right thing, if you can make the right thing the easy thing, all humans are lazy. It's not developers particularly. I mean, marketing people can be lazy too. But developers just want to get from A to B in the easiest way they possibly can. And so from that perspective, make it easy for them, and they're much more likely to do it. That's absolutely natural. Convenience is the killer application, no doubt. I think you've got a great quote from my colleague Rachel Stevens coming up in the deck. Hopefully we won't have time to get to that, but developer experience. If you want, Andrei talked about the cognitive overhead. We need to make it easy for them. Developers shouldn't have to worry about secrets because the platform is built in such a way that a lot of it is done for them. They have to understand they need to understand the issues, but they should not be having to glom together things, move secrets from place to place, be dealing with platforms where they have to do that. There are APIs here integrated with the secrets management platforms. And it should be a discussion, and we should definitely be making developers' lives easier. And if we do, they're much more likely to adopt the better working methods and the platforms.
So, Mike, have you seen better adoption since you guys have really focused on it? So for those that don't know, this little GIF that's on my screen is showing integrations that 1Password Secrets Manager, because remember, it's more than just a password manager, but 1Password Secrets Manager actually integrates into VS Code. Have you seen better adoption? When you've released these types of features, has it increased the use of it?
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen really, really great adoption. The thing about developers, it's a hard group to market to. You can't use traditional marketing techniques. So the growth ends up being quite organic, through Twitter and things like that. So that's why it's really so important to focus on a good developer experience, because if you make something that is, I guess the other point to say is you cannot interrupt a developer's workflow. You get one chance. If you add friction to their workflow, it's over, and they might never look at you again. So if you really make it a seamless experience that sort of creates that wow factor for them, they'll go and share that around. They'll evangelize inside of their teams to share this new tool they found, regardless of what you're working on, not just Secrets, any developer product. So I really think it's super important to have that tight developer experience, and it goes beyond the feature. Really, it's documentation, it's support, just making sure developers can get what they need when they need it, is sort of part of the whole developer experience package.
Absolutely. So we're almost at the time. So we have we have the quote that James was talking about here, but and I think that this describes well what we're talking about. If we're asking developers to be increasingly responsible for building secure apps, we have to make it as frictionless as possible for them to do so. We need platforms of software baked in security defaults. We need to embed principles of least privilege, guardrails, and I mean, you could read it. And I love this. And the reason why I love this is because I don't know why, but it's slowed down a little bit. But when you look at vulnerabilities, like we got bombarded with companies having data breaches because they had misconfigured Amazon S3 buckets. It just seemed to be everywhere. Why is it so easy to misconfigure an S3 bucket? It should be difficult. It should be difficult to make something insecure, and and I think that's what we're all talking about. But we do have to wrap up a little bit now because we're running out of time, and I know people have anything. But I just want to put some final words in there because again, I'm the moderator. I have the power, so I can plug what I want. But really consider investing in your secrets programs. It's not just secrets management. It also needs to have factors into identifying when secrets leak. It needs to have factors in how you deal and rotate secrets with this, what you do, and then analytics to see where they're coming from. So, I mean, there's lots of tools available. I won't talk about GitGuardian because obviously I'm biased, but it is the best, and that's what Andrei said, and he's clearly very smart. So, so definitely, try and check that out. But I'd just like to say thank you to all of the guests that we had in here, Andrei, James, and Mike. It's been a really fantastic discussion. I've really enjoyed it. So thank you all. I'm sure everyone else enjoyed it. We had a lot of people in here. We had over 30 questions, and the GitGuardian team's been answering them behind the scenes. So lots of activity. So I think that's a good indication of what you guys were saying was really resonating with people. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll let you know who the winners are of the prizes. And with that, I wish you all a good night.